Welcome back to Namnitom, the destined planet. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Marcus Aurelius, and this is Dwarf Fortress Anvilquested 2014. And we are having an appendix episode, quite possibly our last appendix episode before the saga of Anvilquested comes to a close. But there was a lot going on in the last couple episodes, and I thought it would be a good idea to check into it. Now, as you know, we are currently in the year 159. We're almost in the year 160. Anvilquested began in the year 150, right at the beginning. We have been involved in 6 notable conflicts, all with the same goblin society, the Wraith of Sabers. It appears that the other goblin society, the one that was terrorizing our homelands for a long period of time, did not ever find their way up to Anvilquested, and frankly, I don't blame them. But out of these 6 conflicts, we have lost 3 plus 8, 11, 12, 19, 27, 28, we've lost 28 dwarves total in these conflicts with the goblins. And the one we had recently was the Crazed Sieges. There's actually 2 attacks in 159, and this is the Crazed Sieges. The attack was led by the goblin Stozu Spear Thief, who died. Let's see who killed him. He suffocated, and she suffocated, and it doesn't say who was responsible for that. But luckily for us, the goblin that caused us so much trouble, Atu Seduce Realms, the Random Dimensions of Midnight, which, by the way, is a freaking awesome name, was a male goblin born in -45 and died in 159, so a little over 200 years old. And it was Dopey Worship Brass, who was the dwarf who finally struck down Atu Seduce Realms. Atu killed 6 of our dwarves: Seriu, Mr. Frodo, Gordosh, Hyuga, the Zax, and Atlas. And in case you want to know what their last names were, Ink Swallows, Fenced Scratches, Guilt Chance, Theater Work, Veil Doors, and Bearded Gems. And that was the only kills that Atu had ever had. So Atu came to Anvilquested as a wrestler and somehow managed to take out 6 of our dwarves. As a result, he received his title, and therefore Dopey's killing of him resulted in a notable kill for Dopey. Too bad, however, that there were no other notable kills to be found in that conflict. So what's going on in Namnitom at this time? Actually, a lot has changed. I'm going to zoom out here a little bit. It may be slightly hard to see, but at least we get a macro picture of the world. One thing I noticed is that the Bridled Evils, the Goblin Society who was terrorizing our homelands, has really been reduced. And they were already reduced, I think, by the previous appendix, but they are pretty much not a player on the international stage anymore. Although our society also hasn't grown or done anything useful. Our ally Dwarven Society, the Figured Princes up here, they have an interesting story to tell, and I would like to tell it. So, as you can see here, in the year 119, there was a humongous elven society up here in the northeast called the Forest of Odors. 2, actually. The Forest of Odors and the Storm of Wasps. 3, because there's also the Ochre Shin. Okay, so this area is Elf Central. 3 different elven societies. Now, fast forward 10 years later, still going strong. 10 years later, 10 years later, and now we're at the foundation of Anvilquested. All of a sudden you notice something. The Storm of Wasps. Their homes and some of the Forest of Odors are dark. That means they're having some trouble. You go a year ahead, and they have been completely taken over by the Wraith of Sabers, the goblin society that is troubling Anvilquested. Completely gone, 2 elven societies just like that. But the elves are falling on hard times, because it's not only the goblins who want a piece of them, but if you'll move forward another year to 152, all of a sudden the Ochre Shin is dark, completely gone. Are the goblins invading them as well? No, it's the dwarves, the figure of princes. So now this entire humongous elven empire on the northeastern coasts of Namnitom has been completely taken over by the Wraith of Sabers and the figure of princes. No wonder we're at war. We're both very expansionistic, it appears. But then something strange happens. This is the 3rd year of Anvilquested, and time moves on. Things happen. Now we're in the 5th year, the 6th year, the 7th, the 8th, and now, in year 8, both the Wraith of Sabers and the figure of princes, all of their lands in this area are dark, which means in 159, the year we are currently in, gone. Nothing but ruins is left of whatever this was. So the elves had a mighty empire. It was destroyed by the dwarves and the goblins, who themselves were crushed by inertia, time, monster attacks, undead. No one knows. But they're gone now. Now the Wraith of Sabers, of course, is still alive. They still have their homelands. They still have moved around here in the fertile valleys. They even have an outpost way up in the northeast in the tundra. But the elves are gone, and the figure of princes have retreated back to their mountain halls, with only Nakamelis, or Okerthin, surviving here on the border of the Badlands and the Fertile Valley. So that's very interesting. I wish there was a way to find out what happened to them. I mean, we could, for example, toggle battles. And you can see here that there were battles between the Ghoul of Inches and the Ochre Shin. So those are the elves and goblins. And we have the same and the same. So not much about the dwarves here. Let's move back a bit. So this is the figure of princes, kingdom clearing, forest retreat, and they own it, but apparently they were not involved in the battle, which was in the year 50 between the goblins and the elves, which was actually 100 years before now, so completely irrelevant to what's going on in modern times. That's very strange how an entire area can be populated. I mean, look at, there's forest retreats left and right, all over the place, and they are all gone. That's very interesting, and we'll maybe never know what became of those poor elves in the northeast, and what then eventually led to the collapse of the societies who supplanted them. Now, after Anvilquested has achieved its purpose one way or another, I believe, not right away, but eventually, we are going to do adventurer mode, and we are going to be a human of the coincidental union of scars. And we're going to check out a couple things. We're of course going to try to check out Anvilquested, but we're also going to see what was going on in the Storm of Wasps, or the Fortnight, the Evenness of Mornings, where the elves apparently have 3 of their members, but yet they've never been to Anvilquested or discussed trade with us or anything. We may even go down through the deserts and the Badlands to reach the figure of princes, and maybe, if we're having a good enough time, we might cross the mountain range and make it to our homelands and see what's going on there. But that's purely speculative. We might just go to Anvilquested and check out the cave, and that'll be it. But that's what I intend to do eventually. Let's see what else has been going on. To the south, around our homelands, we'll untoggle the battles now, because they're not that useful. Alright, so in the recent past, as you know, the goblins, the bridled evils, had conquered a number of our lands, but over time, they also disappeared. Generally between 158 and 159. Not sure what happened to cause these massive changes in civilizations. This elven civilization down here, the pregnancy of Vazens, seems to be doing quite well. This human civilization, the kingdom of fainting, also appears to be doing quite well. And to be fair, our society, the Ageless Manor, after the initial losses, has steadied itself, and we pretty much own the southern mountain tip. Then there's the Turquoise Kingdom, here to the southwest, a very rich and prosperous human kingdom. And they are butting up against the nation of Calamity, I guess if I had a choice, I'd much rather be a citizen of the Turquoise Kingdom than the Nation of Calamity, because that sounds pretty calamitous. But down here in the southwest, we have the Flowery Empire, and they seem to have a goblin empire next to them called the Cradled Sins. Toggle Wars. I don't think that actually tells me anything, does it? Oh, okay. So, it appears that the Confederation of Hail, another human civilization on the shores of Lake something or other, is in a war with the Torments of Proliferating. Or no, they're in a war with the Cradled Sins. Gosh, there's a lot of goblins in this world. Meanwhile, the Pregnancy of Basins, these elves, they are attacking the Ageless Manor. How dare they? They're coming into our southern holdings, or Depth Arches, which is a fortress, in the assaults of Clouting. Let's see how that went. Total deaths 3. This is a 3-year-old war, so 1 death a year on average. And it looks like, well, it doesn't really... The conflict of Lansing was waged by the Pregnancy of Basins on the Ageless Manor. It started in 157 early autumn and is still ongoing. The Ageless Manor has 3 kills and 3 battle victories, so even though the elves attacked us, we have acquitted ourselves quite well, and in 3 sieges, each time we've taken out 1 elf. I'm not sure if they only attacked us with 1 elf. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like just 1 elf attacked the entire fortress of Depth Arches. Eli Pines Echoes. And he was fighting all of these folks, including Percival. So Percival must have just left Depth Arches before arriving at Anvilquested. Let's see. Percival, yeah, he settled in Anvilquested in the early summer of 159, so just a few months from where we are right now. Prior to that, he was in Depth Arches. Percival apparently left Depth Arches because of the elven attacks, only to find himself in Anvilquested, where we're continually being beset by goblins and forgotten beasts. So I'm sure he doesn't feel like that was a good decision. His parents are Sigun Portent Clasps and Monum Syrup Paddles. It's quite the name, Syrup Paddles. Let me show the map here. So the elves, it appears, on a macro level, like to expand really far. As you can see, their civilization starts here, and they've gone all the way up here. You can see these guys came all the way down here. I mean, their whole civilization is gone for the most part, and yet they still managed to come all the way down to here and all the way to the west coast, and formed a colony at Crossgutter, the Organized Crevice. So it looks like they expanded too far, and then they eventually fell. All they have left in their homelands is a forest retreat called Blizzard Wax, where there's 99 elves. And is this the same society or a different one? Nope, this is the Forest of Odors, and they're down to only 2 forest retreats. So it looks like the Storm of Wasps only has 1 territory at this point, and a few caves that they have conquered. Whereas the Wraith of Sabers is doing quite well. They seem to be... Let's toggle wars back here. So the goblins are peaceful with each other. Let's see here. So there's no war here between the goblins and the dwarves. They simply just together decided to abandon all of their territory here. There is a small war between the goblins and the elves. But yeah, there's never... And this wasn't even a war. That's so strange. I don't know, perhaps the Legends viewer just doesn't tell us enough good information, but it seems rather odd that the elves would simply abandon all of this land they controlled, and that the dwarves and the goblins would fill it up. That does seem a bit strange, in my opinion. But let's take another look at Anvilquested. So Anvilquested has a huge history now. Most of it, however, is just announcing that so-and-so has created a masterful item. Like, for example, Barry Lefreak created a masterful unknown. Marcus Aurelius created a masterful unknown. So this is probably weapons or armor of some kind. Barry Lefreak is a clothier, I believe. Bry created a masterful something. Basically Barry and Marcus, and then Queen of Wolves became an unknown job. And yeah, so it's basically Barry, Bry, and Marcus creating a lot of wonderful things, although Mason here created a masterful unknown as well. One of these days, I hope that Toady actually spends some time to improve the Legends export so that this can be a lot more interesting. But that's about all there is to say. So this is going to be a short appendix episode. We took a look at Atu Seduce Realms. We found out that Dopey was the dwarf who finally was able to shut him down. And we've taken a look at some of the strange happenings going on in Namnitom, the Destined Planet. So I hope that you are enjoying this series of Dwarf Fortress Anvilquested. Now that it is winding down, there should only be a few more episodes left before all hell breaks loose, literally. And that will be a lot of fun. Once again, I am Marcus Aurelius. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.